And why did it work? Because they squeezed out the ambiguity. The same truth applies in the organizational world. Leaders have to squeeze out the ambiguity. I talked to an executive from Millennium. She said the problem they were struggling with is, how can we manage data effectively? Across our CROs, internally. Now, if you ask 100 different people that question, you're going to get 100 different answers, right? They're going to be thinking about different variables. They're going to be thinking about different ways to frame that problem. It is ambiguity rich, as we would say. But they knew they weren't going to get a solution out of the ambiguity, so they knew they had to do something. Here's what they did. They brought in all 3 of their CRO partners for a 2-day workshop, put them all in the same room. Some awkward moments there. First few hours of the day, the competitors, sitting across from each other. But she said it didn't take long for people to figure out that they were all pretty much rowing the same direction. Everybody wanted their workflow to get easier. Everybody wanted to be doing good work. Nobody wanted the friction that comes from misunderstandings and miscommunications. And so they worked together on shared standards for managing data. And it worked. They got into the weeds. They got granular on this to the point where one of their CROs reported that the time it took to build, or their database build timeline rather, decreased from 30 weeks to 11 weeks. They squeezed the ambiguity out. This is also true in management. In fact, maybe especially true in management. My brother and I were talking to the principal of a school, and she had a staffing problem. She had a problem with one of her assistant principals. She said, this guy's pretty good. He's got good strengths. He's good at working with the at-risk kids. He's patient. The teachers like him. The students like him. But, this is the way she phrased the but. I want him to be more proactive. He's not a go-to guy. He needs to have more influence on the day-to-day interactions in the school. I just want him to be more of a presence. All right, so on our spectrum of food pyramid to 1% milk, where is this quote right here? This is a food pyramid quote, right? If you were this assistant principal, how would you feel hearing this quote? I would feel a little freaked out. Because I know, from wise use of context clues that my boss is dissatisfied with something. But I have no idea what that something is, right? So we pushed her. We said, well, what exactly? Tell us what it would look like if he was more of a go-to guy. And you know what popped out? Were some beautifully actionable items like these. She said, a lot of times he meets with teachers, but they tend to come to his office in the central office. I'd love it if he went out to their classrooms to meet with them so he can just soak up some of the environment that they've created for their students. And also on Friday nights, all of us go to the football game. It's a big deal. But he tends to sit up in the stands with all of us. And because part of his responsibility is discipline, it would be great if he spent some time circulating in the student stands just to keep tabs on things. Well, now if you were this assistant principal, how would you feel? Oh, that's what you wanted? Well, sure. Yeah, no problem, boss. So you see across domains, organizational change, managerial change, massive public health change, the lesson is the same. Leaders have to kill ambiguity and script those critical moves. Script those critical moves as if you were writing them for the actor in a play. Logic and information are rarely enough to spark change. It would be a simpler world indeed if we could just educate our way to change. If you could just tell your teenage daughter, hey, it's dangerous to text while you're driving. And that was the end of it, because she accepted the superiority of your information, and that did it. She changed. Poof. And yet that's the way a lot of public health efforts work. So look at our cigarettes, for instance. These warnings, they say cigarette smoke contains carbon monoxide, as if that were the one factoid that smokers were missing previously, right? So what would a more emotional, a more elephant-friendly label look like? Does that even make sense to talk about? Well, actually it does, and other countries are way ahead of us on this. In Italy, for instance, they have just these big, bold warnings on their packs that say, smoking kills. A little more direct. But it's Canada that has really cracked this. Any Canadians here? All right, I salute you. I salute you. In Canada, they have these big, bold, splashy photos on the side of their packs like this one right here. Ugh. It's a visceral response to this label. This is a label that talks to the elephant. It grosses you out. It makes you feel something. What about this other label? Tobacco use can make you impotent. Now, when Canadian men see this label, they feel something, right? So what this means is all this time we spend thinking about nutritional labels, for instance, I think is largely a red herring. You know, because one thing I noticed is when I flashed up this label, none of you went, ugh. Even though whatever this is a deeply unhealthy item of food. This is like fried Crisco sticks, right, with a ranch dressing, dipping sauce. So if we want to get serious about changing people's eating behavior, we need to speak to the elephant, take a lesson from Canada, and create some labels with a little more visual punch to them.